Okay, so this concept of adaptation is really super important in biology to understand living things. And what I want to get into here is you got to remember living things you can't really understand. Let me see, how do I say this? You might love going to a zoo and looking at a tiger, okay? And say, "Oh man, he's so cool! Look at that, powerful paws and the strong, rah! Look at those teeth and the stripes," and admire the tiger as an amazing organism. But if you just see it in the cage, you can't really understand the tiger, right? If you're gonna try to understand the tiger, you have to see how it fits in with its environment. So now we're getting to the species. You remember cells, tissues, organism, an organism, population, community, ecosystem. It's how the organism interacts with its ecosystem, interacting with its environment. Okay, and so um, it's the environment over time shapes the organism, right? Because the ones that match it will survive. And okay, so let's think. Okay, tiger. I think that's not a bad example. The next part, what I'm going to do, usually I'll have a class. I'll say, okay, give me an example of any animal you can think of, and I'll do this next little bit with whatever they come up with. Okay, since it's an online lesson, I thought about doing it on the Zoom, but let's just make it on the video. So I'll just pick a tiger. Okay, tiger is going to be the animal we're going to try to understand a little bit. Because if you look at that tiger, every single trait that it has, everything about it, helps it survive in the particular ecosystem it lives in. Okay? And that is how it's adapted to that ecosystem. So let's get on with that part. On your paper, I'm going to want you to go ahead and draw this just to help keep you paying attention on this. In times past, what I've done in person is there's the next project coming up would be a poster project where this would be kind of an example of how you'll set up your poster. And in the classroom, I'd have you draw the picture of the animal of your choice. And kind of like the sunlight for breakfast thing where you kind of sketch it as a layout. In this case, I've decided I'm not going to do it as a poster project, but more as a PowerPoint project. That the next lesson, I'm going to introduce that project. So let's not worry about it too much now. But keep in mind, I'm going to have you choose an animal, and you have to select 10 specific ways that it is adapted to its environment. What features it has, its physical adaptations to that particular environment. And so, let's say it's a tiger. Okay, so I'm going to use a tiger as an example. And you don't necessarily have to draw yours in your poster, but I'm going to draw it just as a way of teaching the concept. So there's the tiger's muzzle there. And one thing you might think of, first thing you think of a tiger is it has these big long fangs, okay? And it has these sharp teeth. Now those teeth are adapted really well to bite into, a animal and grasp it, right? And maybe to pierce the jugular vein. Oh man, it just went out of focus when I did that. There we go. And so those teeth are adapted as predators to help it grasp and hold onto the prey, and also maybe so that shape of teeth, you could look at a tiger and go, "Whoa, look at those teeth!" But you don't understand it unless you understand how those teeth help it survive. Okay? And so that would be one example. If we were doing the poster thing, I'd say, okay, the teeth help it survive because blah, blah, blah. All right. So if I was making a PowerPoint, I would just have a picture with a tiger with its teeth, and you can specify that the teeth help it survive as a predator. It helps it grasp, hold on to its prey, kill the prey, but maybe hit the jugular vein, which is our carotid artery in the neck. Okay. So another thing about tigers, you may know or may not know that they have really good eyesight, and I'll just kind of draw some sort of tiger eyes. And so the tiger eyes, I would have in my poster a picture of the tiger eyes. One thing I might mention is that they're both facing forward. Here's something that's kind of interesting about living things. If it's a predator, it'll tend to have its eyes in the front. And if it's a prey animal, it tends to have its eyes on the side. Like a horse or a cow or something has its eyes on the side so it can see a big range of motion, right? Whereas a something like a tiger has its eyes up front so it can use binocular vision. So that might be something I would say. A tiger's eyes are positioned in the front so it can have binocular vision for depth perception so it can jump and judge the distance to how far away that prey is to be able to get that depth. A prey animal doesn't necessarily have to have that depth perception. It just has to be able to see something coming up kind of beside it. So that might be one thing I'd say. Another thing I might say something about a tiger's eyes. The slit, you may or may not know the fact that they have the that particular kind of iris. It's like to open up like this. It can become open to let in a lot of light for night vision. And so there's also like this reflector thing on the back of the eye. And so there's a couple things I could talk about the eye good for night vision. Cats can see in the dark really, really well, or at least in very low light levels, not in complete darkness. Another thing you might mention is a tiger, has good hearing, so it can hear a prey animal. I guess it could be any kind of cat at this point, right? And so maybe the sleek shape to help it move, fluidly and to be able to leap. Now, you may or may not know that the big cats have a long tail. They can rotate that tail if they're jumping to help counterbalance so they can kind of maneuver. You may or may not know, cats always land on their feet. Part of that is that rotating of the tail. They can use that to spin against for every action. There's an equal and opposite reaction. So they can spin the tail and also rotate their front and then their back to be able to land on their feet. So, I'd say the tail is there because it helps them maneuver at high speeds and when it jumps. Okay, so what I'm getting here is got two things for the eyes, got the ears, got the teeth, got the tail, a lot of different adaptations for the tiger. Let's say, okay, a tiger's paws might be adapted with pads on the bottom for silent hunting. So I might have a little window that says tiger's paws adapted for silent hunting. And the point is, it's adapted to survive in this particular environment, okay? In its own particular way. It has claws, could be another thing that I would include. Claws would be something that would help it survive because it can grasp onto its prey, by grabbing hold of it. Now the stripes is something that people, figure, okay, the tiger has stripes. Well, you can go to the zoo and look at the tiger and go, wow, those stripes are so cool. But you won't understand it unless you understand how the stripes help it survive in an environment, the jungle environment. These stripes are like a camouflage, help it blend in with the vertical plant that it's hiding within, right? Okay, let's go for the rest of the mouth here a little bit. I don't know, the raspy tongue. I don't know if you've ever been licked by a cat, but it's like sandpaper. Well, what that does is it helps it take up water and things of that sort. So when it licks something, and then the whiskers are adapted to help it survive in its environment because when it's going around at night in amongst all the plants and everything, the whiskers are actually very good sense organs, right? If you touch a cat's whisker, it hates it because they're very sensitive. The tips aren't sensitive. It's just hair. They can't feel that. But the base they're connected to gets the signal to the brain, says, whoa, there's something there. And so it helps them judge if they have enough space in the opening they're going through, whether your whole body will be able to slip through it or not. They don't want to get like trying to go through some hole they can't fit in or some space between two trees or something. Again, I don't want to spend too long and draw out the entire picture of a whole, tiger. But if you do your research on your particular animal, you should easily be able to come with 10 separate adaptations that animal has to survive in its particular environment. Okay? Now, I'm just using this to teach the concept of adaptation. At this point, I'm not assigning the project yet. That's going to come next. And instead of it being a poster, I guess I would accept a poster if that's what you'd really rather do because you love doing art. That would be kind of fun, and you could just email it to me. But I'm going to have you I'm going to set up a slides presentation for you to make about it. So you might start thinking about what animal you want to do it about. It could actually be done about with a plant too, if you're really into a plant. It might be a little harder. And so start thinking about what animal you want to do and start doing some preliminary research you're going to have a hard time just going adaptations a tiger has to its environment and finding specifics necessarily through just a simple word Google search. I'm going to hope you do more research into the animal than just the adaptations. You got to understand what the animal's all about. Okay, so the point is adaptation. If you look at any organism, you could pick a. I could have done this with a crocodile. I could have done it with a cow, a chick. I don't want to say cow or chicken; they're domesticated. But say a wild buffalo or a kind of a bird. They're all adapted to particular ways of surviving in a particular environment. Now, just to kind of throw it off, would a tiger? Suppose it didn't have the hind feet it has. Suppose it had like little duck feet. How would it be able to survive with duck feet? No, that wouldn't work in its environment, its way of making its living, right? Would it be able to survive? Oh, I don't know. Does it have like a fin that the killer whale has? Does it need that? No, that would be working against it because it wouldn't be able to fit through the spaces as well. The killer whale, the fin, helps it survive in its own environment in its own way, and the duck's feet help it survive in its own way. And so you can really understand if the organism, if you think in terms of its adaptations. Cha-ching. Okay.